Welcome to Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. It's my first time back in the north of the country in about 20 years, and I expect to be surprised all over again. In this episode, we'll relive a chapter of Vietnam's colonial past in the capital's elegant French Quarter and explore the lively street culture around Hanoi's historic Lake District. We'll try the city's world-renowned version of Vietnamese and fusion cuisine and immerse ourselves in the capital's ancient traditions and its thriving contemporary art scene. So join me in Hanoi. I'm David Celdran, and this is Executive Class. It's been 2 decades since my last visit to Hanoi, and the Vietnamese capital is almost unrecognizable. The old bicycles have been replaced by cars and motorbikes on the road, and some of my favorite haunts have been torn down to make way for new and upscale commercial developments. Vietnam, to the surprise of many, is a socialist state, ruled since 1975 by a single party, the Communist Party. But young visitors to this dynamic country might not even notice. Older tourists, however, will likely remember the Vietnam War, that bitter, protracted conflict between the Communist North and the US-backed South that ended with a reunification of the country under communism in the 70s. But that's pretty much all that's left of it. Memories. As Vietnam's adoption of an ambitious economic liberalization program in the 90s has turned its once isolated, war-ravaged nation into one of Asia's leading tourism destinations and fastest-growing economies. Like the rest of the country, Hanoi is modernizing quickly, but the past can still be relived today in some parts of the city, and none as elegantly as in the French Quarter, where the buildings, squares, and boulevards built by the French have been preserved for more than a century. Tree-lined boulevards, 19th century mansions and buildings. It sort of reminds of a French city. And that's why this district is called the French Quarter, so named because of the predominance of French colonial architecture. The French ruled the country from 1859 up until they were defeated by nationalists in 1954. The colonial period under France may have been brutal, but we can at least thank the French for leaving behind an architectural heritage that even fervent nationalists continue to enjoy. The French Quarter has been able to retain some of its original charm, but only by so much, because everywhere else around it, the city's skyline is changing. Only time will tell how much of the original French Quarter will remain unscathed by development, but what's left of it today is still rather stunning. If I were to pick my favorite building in the French Quarter, it would be this, the former Governor's Palace. Just take a good look at it. This beautifully preserved Beaux-Arts-style colonial building was the official residence of the French Governor-General in northern Vietnam, or Tonkin. It's now a guest house of the government. Other highlights of French colonial style include the Hanoi Opera House, patterned after the Opera Garnier in Paris. And across the square, the Hanoi Stock Exchange. French missionaries also introduced a Roman Catholic religion in the 17th century. The Notre Dame de Paris look-alike, the neo-Gothic St. Joseph's Cathedral, remains the seat of the Hanoi Archdiocese. One of the most elegant buildings in the French Quarter is the Hotel Metropole Hanoi, now a Sofitel Legend Hotel. It was built in 1901 using the typical French colonial architectural style of the time. Now, even after the French-Vietnamese War, when the Vietnamese government took over the property and renamed it the Reunification Hotel, it never lost its French charm and its French style, more so now that it's back in the arms of a French company and French management. The Hotel Metropole was envisioned to be the most luxurious address in Hanoi, and up until the fall of the French in 1954, she was the grande dame of hotels in Indochina, with a guest list that included the top personalities of that era. The legendary hotel underwent a slow and steady decline in the decades after liberation and during the Vietnam War, and only began to recover its luster when the Accor Group of France took over and later rebranded the property in 2009 as a Sofitel Legend Metropole Hanoi, the first in the brand's elite collection of historic properties. Ever since the French re-established management at the hotel, they've taken great effort to bring back some French charm to the hotel, the property, including the acquisition of these vintage Citroën cars. Now, these cars are the icons of the hotel. The vintage Citroëns were part of a massive multi-million-dollar relaunch of the property. Although much has been modernized to 21st century standards of luxury, most of the French colonial architectural details of the original Metropole wing were preserved. If I didn't tell you I was in Hanoi, you'd probably think I was in Paris or some other French city. Well, that was the whole point of this street-side cafe. It was to create a slice of Paris or Europe here in the Orient. Visitors in the early years of the hotel would probably recognize La Terrasse today, a Parisian cafe in the heart of Hanoi where great artists like Charlie Chaplin and Noel Coward watched the city pass by. Hello.
Our signature cocktail.
This is the Charlie Chaplin,
Yes,
named
sir.
after the famous film director and actor. Chaplin spent his honeymoon at the Metropole, and this cocktail and sorbet combination was named to honor him. The amazing thing about staying in a historic hotel is that every part of the property has a story to tell. Le Clos Bar, for example, where I am, was the favorite watering hole of the famous novelist Graham Greene. And this drink over here, or this specialty from Hanoi called egg coffee, well, the former bartender of Le Club, he invented it. The egg coffee enjoyed all over Hanoi is a relatively new phenomenon, but almost everything else about the Metropole wing was refitted, or in some cases, reinvented, to look like the original. The classical interiors of the Metropole wing's suites transport you to a bygone era in the French Quarter, and to the charmed life enjoyed by long-staying guests like the novelist William Somerset Maugham, who left an indelible mark on the property. The Somerset Maugham suite is very much in demand, not just because of the famous people who stayed here, but also because of this. It's the only suite, the only room on the property with its own private garden. Somerset Maugham and Charlie Chaplin were lucky to have enjoyed Hanoi's French Quarter in peacetime. But for celebrity anti-war activists like Jane Fonda and Joan Baez, their experience at the Metropole during the Vietnam War wasn't always as charming. As I said earlier, every part of the hotel has an interesting story to tell. Now, this painting over here of a Vietnamese boy, this was painted by the famous American folk singer and anti-war activist Joan Baez, who was here during the height of the bombings of Hanoi. She was here at the hotel, and she returned recently and painted this painting over here. It's a portrait of a boy separated from his mother during the infamous 1972 bombing of the city. Baez returned to the Metropole a few years ago and left the painting to remind people to never again allow a similar atrocity. As there were too many foreigners staying here, the Metropole, like other buildings in the French Quarter, were never the target of the bombings. But just to be safe, the hotel built a bomb shelter anyway. The bunker was discovered in 2011 while constructing the bamboo bar on the edge of the hotel's pool. Those who sign up for the hotel's Path of History tour are told how guests during the Vietnam War would be taken to the bunker up to 6 times every day to seek shelter from the frequent air raids. Thankfully, the bunker's double iron doors and 2-meter thick reinforced cement walls were never put to the test, so guests often pass the time drinking away instead. Joan Baez spent hours in the bunker as bombs fell. She used the time here to record her moving anti-war anthem as well.
The Indians, Cubans, and Vietnamese. The tiny tree are
the war is long over, and the rebirth of the Metropole as a Sofitel Legend Hotel has been nothing short of spectacular. To accommodate even more guests, the new opera wing was built with a dedicated lobby and executive lounge, plus a new collection of rooms and suites done in modern French style. Naturally, authentic French cuisine is offered at the hotel, and Le Bayou restaurant is considered one of the best brasseries in town, while those looking for local Vietnamese delicacies during their stay can feast at the Spices Garden restaurant's generous buffet. Hanoi is famous for its fantastic, fragrant, and flavorful street food, and though Spices Garden is an upscale and sanitized version of it, the dishes prepared by award-winning Vietnamese chefs like Chef Xuan Zai Xuan are nonetheless authentic. Chef, thank you so much. This looks like a very delicious meal. What do you call this?
This is Vietnamese called bún chả.
Bún chả, rice noodles with grilled pork, herbs, and vegetables flavored in a sweet and spicy dipping sauce, is a northern Vietnamese specialty and a must-try when in the city. As are spring rolls, either the deep-fried version with minced pork or fresh with prawns and vegetables. And pho, of course, the iconic beef or chicken rice noodle soup dish that's found throughout the country. Though the northerners swear their savory version is better than the Swedish broth served in southern parts of the country, like in Ho Chi Minh City. Good food, whether local or French, Vietnamese, is another reason to visit Hanoi, where there are so many places in the city to enjoy it. So, when we return after the break, we'll follow the scent of food and the sound of commerce to Hanoi's Old Quarter, the colorful working-class district where the true heart of the city beats.